Sylvester Stallone was invited onto a primetime talk show, expecting the usual questions about his career, upcoming projects, and fitness routines. Instead, the host, a well-known liberal commentator, decided to challenge him on politics, assuming Stallone would hesitate or dodge controversial topics. What happened next left the audience stunned. As the interview started, the host steered the conversation toward Hollywood's role in politics. Stallone, known for his action hero persona, gave a diplomatic response about personal freedom and respecting different viewpoints. But the host wasn't satisfied. With a smirk, he leaned in and asked, "Come on, Sly. Don't you think actors, like you, should take more responsibility for the messages they put out? Maybe rethink all the tough guy narratives?" Stallone chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "You mean the narratives where the hero works hard, overcomes obstacles, and never quits? Yeah, real dangerous stuff." The audience erupted in laughter. The host, caught off guard, attempted to regain control. "Well, there's an argument that those movies promote outdated ideals." Stallone cut in. "Like self-discipline, courage, and standing up for yourself? Yeah, let's cancel those." His sarcastic tone made the audience cheer. The host's confident demeanor started to crack. Attempting to shift the conversation, the host brought up inequality, suggesting that Hollywood elites like Stallone should do more to redistribute their wealth. Stallone, unfazed, simply grinned. "Listen, I came from nothing. I was homeless, had to sell my dog just to eat. Nobody handed me anything. I wrote Rocky in a tiny apartment and refused to sell it unless I could star in it. You know what happened next? I worked my butt off and earned my success. That's the American dream, not sitting around waiting for someone else's money." The studio fell silent for a beat before the audience erupted into applause. The host, visibly uncomfortable, struggled for a rebuttal. Stallone, sensing victory, leaned forward. "You know, I think people just want to see hard work pay off. Maybe that's why they're tired of being lectured by folks who never had to struggle." The host had no comeback. He awkwardly laughed and changed the subject to Stallone's fitness routine, clearly eager to escape the unexpected showdown. But the moment had already gone viral. Within hours, clips flooded social media, with fans cheering Stallone for shutting down the host's condescending attitude. By the next day, the interview trended worldwide, with headlines praising Stallone's no-nonsense attitude. Some critics tried to spin it as controversial, but most viewers simply loved seeing a Hollywood legend stand his ground. As for Stallone, he didn't seem to care about the media frenzy. When asked later about the moment, he simply shrugged. "Hey, I just tell it like it is." In the days following the interview, social media exploded with reactions. Fans flooded comment sections praising Stallone's unapologetic stance and calling it the most satisfying takedown on live TV. Memes surfaced with Stallone's quotes, especially the line about self-discipline and hard work. Even those who didn't usually follow Hollywood drama found themselves drawn to the clip, appreciating Stallone's old-school mindset in an era of constant political grandstanding. Meanwhile, the TV host faced backlash from both sides. His usual, supporters felt he had fumbled the moment, failing to counter Stallone's points effectively. Others accused him of underestimating the actor, assuming he would be an easy target just because he played tough guys on screen. Behind the scenes, producers scrambled to control the narrative, but the damage had already been done. Stallone had won not just the argument, but the audience. Major news outlets picked up the story, with conservative commentators celebrating the moment as a rare instance of Hollywood rejecting modern elitism. Even those on the fence admitted it was refreshing to see a celebrity refuse to play by the usual rules of sanitized PR responses. Instead of backtracking or issuing a follow-up statement, Stallone doubled down. When a reporter asked him about the viral moment, he just grinned and said, "Look, I don't do politics, I do common sense." The virality of the moment even impacted Stallone's upcoming projects. His latest film, which had been flying under the radar, saw a spike in interest. Pre-sales for his autobiography surged, and fans started revisiting his classic movies, viewing them through a new lens. Hollywood insiders took notice, with some producers whispering that perhaps audiences were craving more authentic, straight-talking stars rather than overly polished, politically correct personalities. But for Stallone, Life went on, as usual. When asked on another talk show if he'd returned to the previous host's program, he laughed. "Nah, I think I made my point." As the media frenzy continued, Stallone remained unfazed, going about his business as if nothing had happened. But behind the scenes, Hollywood was abuzz. Executives and PR teams took note. Audiences were clearly hungry for authenticity, and Stallone had just proven that being real was more powerful than sticking to a script. Meanwhile, the TV host struggled to regain control of the narrative. In an attempt to save face, he addressed the moment on his next show. "Look, I respect Sylvester Stallone," he said, forcing a smile. "But let's be honest, he dodged some important points." He then played selectively edited clips, trying to frame the exchange as a misunderstanding. But viewers weren't buying it. The full video had already been seen by millions, and the host's attempt at damage control only made things worse. Stallone, when asked about the host's response, simply chuckled. "You ever notice how people who talk about accountability don't like it when it's their turn?" His offhand remark became another viral moment, with fans turning it into a rallying cry. Even celebrities began weighing in. Some applauded Stallone for his honesty, while others tried to distance themselves, wary of upsetting the Hollywood establishment. A few actors attempted to challenge him on social media, but Stallone ignored the noise. He wasn't interested in online debates. He had movies to make and a life to live. The most surprising twist came when Stallone's popularity surged in unexpected ways. Younger audiences, many of whom had never watched a Rocky or Rambo film, started discovering his work. Social media flooded with clips from his classic movies, with fans pointing out how his characters embodied timeless values, perseverance, resilience, and self-reliance. A major streaming service even capitalized on the moment by featuring a Stallone collection on its homepage, leading to a massive spike in views. It was clear, while some Hollywood elites tried to dismiss him, the people were on his side. Months later, as Stallone attended a red carpet event for his latest movie, a reporter asked him if he had any regrets about the viral interview. He smirked. "Regrets? Nah. But I will say this. Next time someone tries to tell me hard work is outdated, I'll just remind them who's still standing." And with that, Stallone walked off, proving once again that he didn't need approval from Hollywood's elite. He had something far more valuable: the respect of everyday people who saw in him a reflection of their own struggles, victories, and unbreakable spirit. As Stallone continued to navigate the aftermath of the interview, his influence only grew. The internet buzzed with discussions about his no-nonsense approach, and it wasn't just the usual fanfare, it was genuine admiration from all walks of life. People started sharing stories about how they'd been inspired by his characters over the years, many of whom represented the underdog, fighting against the odds to succeed. The political talk shows and news outlets, still reeling from the interview, began inviting him for follow-up appearances. Stallone turned down most of these offers. "I said my piece," he told one interviewer. "I'm not here for the spectacle. I'm here to tell people they can achieve greatness without waiting for permission." That sentiment resonated. More than ever, Stallone's words were being quoted, not just as sound bites, but as a call to action. In the months that followed, his social media presence also grew. He'd always been active online, but now his posts reflected a more direct, unfiltered voice. Whether he was sharing workout tips, behind-the-scenes moments from his movies, or simply speaking out on issues that mattered to him, Stallone's authenticity made him a symbol of resilience for his audience. Despite the ongoing media circus, Stallone didn't hesitate to embrace the role of a mentor. He started a podcast where he invited fellow actors, athletes, and entrepreneurs to talk about overcoming challenges. The podcast became a hit, especially among younger listeners who were drawn to Stallone's stories of perseverance and his no-ego approach to success. It wasn't just about movies anymore, it was about life lessons. Then, a surprising turn of events occurred. A group of aspiring filmmakers, inspired by Stallone's candidness, reached out to him with a pitch for a documentary. The idea? A raw, unfiltered look at what it really takes to make it in Hollywood, starring none other than the man himself. Stallone loved the idea. "You want the truth? Let's do it. No fluff, no gimmicks, just the grind. The documentary, titled The Real Stallone, followed him as he reflected on his rise from the tough streets of New York to international stardom, all while staying true to himself in an industry that often values image over authenticity. It was an instant success. Critics praised it for its honesty, and audiences loved the behind-the-scenes glimpse of the man who had become a legend. As the months turned to years, Stallone's influence seemed to transcend Hollywood. His iconic films, Rocky, Rambo, The Expendables, took on new cultural significance, seen as blueprints for overcoming personal struggles and refusing to back down. Even in his 70s, Stallone was more relevant than ever. He continued to stand his ground on issues he cared about, never shying away from confrontation but always with a steady commitment to his values. When a new wave of political correctness swept through Hollywood, Stallone was quick to challenge it, often with humor. "You know, I always thought the best way to fight for something was to work hard and keep going," he said during one interview. "But apparently now you need a hashtag." His message wasn't lost on the world. Hard work, authenticity, and resilience would never go out of style. Sylvester Stallone had become more than a movie star. He had become a symbol for those who refused to conform, those who still believed in the power of the individual. And as the years went by, it was clear. The man who had once been the tough guy on screen was now, more than ever, the toughest man in the room. As the years passed, Stallone's legacy continued to evolve in unexpected ways. His influence had transcended the screen, and he had become something of a cultural icon, embodying not just the spirit of perseverance, but the value of remaining true to oneself in an ever-changing world. It wasn't just his acting or his action hero persona that people admired. It was his willingness to speak the truth, even when it wasn't the popular thing to do. The documentary The Real Stallone continued to resonate, spawning a wave of imitators. Yet none could quite capture the rawness and authenticity that Stallone brought to the table. He was the living proof that success in Hollywood didn't require sacrificing your principles. In fact, if anything, it was that very authenticity that made him a timeless figure. He wasn't just seen as a throwback to an older era, he was a bridge between the past and the future. The new generation of filmmakers and actors, many of whom had grown up watching his movies, now looked to him not only as a mentor but as a beacon for how to navigate the entertainment industry with integrity. In addition to his burgeoning role as a mentor to young talent, Stallone took on more philanthropic efforts. He became involved in various charitable causes, especially those supporting veterans and underprivileged youth, two groups he had a deep connection to. He often spoke about how his characters in Rocky and Rambo represented the struggle of the human spirit and that he wanted to give back by helping those who needed it most. Stallone's involvement in these causes was not just a PR move, it was a heartfelt mission. His work with veterans organizations and youth programs became a vital part of his later years, and his genuine commitment to these causes only amplified his standing in the public eye. The rise of social media had also turned Stallone into a voice for an entire generation of fans who felt disconnected from the polished, PR-driven world of modern celebrity. He continued to post candid moments, whether it was a workout video, a philosophical thought about life, or simply him enjoying time with his family. His posts were always unvarnished, always real. Unlike many of his Hollywood peers, Stallone never appeared to be seeking validation from anyone. He gave the world his truth, and it was enough. He'd regularly post about the importance of self-reliance and mental toughness, reflecting on the lessons from his iconic roles. "In life, just like in the ring, you're going to take a lot of hits," he wrote in one post alongside a picture from Rocky. "But it's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward." The message resonated far beyond the confines of Hollywood. It reached people in all walks of life struggling to find their way in a world full of uncertainty. With each passing year, Stallone's story became even more inspiring. As he entered his 80s, people continued to look to him as the embodiment of strength, not just physical but mental and emotional. There were no signs of slowing down. Even in his later years, he was involved in new projects, including directing, producing, and even taking on roles in movies that resonated with his journey. He remained as busy as ever, proving that age was no barrier to ambition. One of his final triumphs came in a return to the Rocky franchise, but this time, it wasn't about action. He reprised his role as Rocky Balboa, not as a fighter in the ring but as a trainer and mentor to a new generation of fighters, both in the movie and in real life. This full-circle moment was symbolic of everything Stallone had become. A teacher, a guide, a reminder that anyone, no matter where they come from, can fight for their dreams. It wasn't just his story, it was the story of millions of people who had looked up to him, who had seen in his characters not just fictional heroes but reflections of their own struggles and triumphs. As he reached the final chapter of his career, Stallone had not just become a living legend. He had become a cultural force that inspired generations to come. His story, filled with adversity, resilience, and triumph, would continue to shape and inspire long after the credits rolled. As Stallone's career entered its final act, there was a noticeable shift in how the world saw him, not just as an actor but as a symbol of enduring perseverance. The films he made, the roles he portrayed, and the way he had lived his life now felt like an anthem to millions who felt overlooked or underestimated. He had transcended the world of movies and become a metaphor for a generation of dreamers who were tired of hearing that the American dream was no longer possible. Through Stallone's work, they saw that it was still alive even in the toughest of circumstances. In his later years, Stallone took on more reflective roles, often portraying characters who had seen the height of glory, but were now tasked with passing on their knowledge. The films felt different, not just because of his age, but because they seemed to carry a deeper understanding of what it meant to truly overcome life's battles. His characters were no longer invincible action heroes. They were wiser, more introspective, and in many ways more human. The story of the Rocky universe, especially in films like Creed, now reflected that transition. A veteran mentor passing on lessons to the next generation. Stallone's voice carried weight beyond the screen, too. He became a sought-after speaker at major events, addressing audiences not just in Hollywood but around the world. His speeches, filled with heartfelt messages about the power of resilience and the importance of fighting for one's dreams, packed auditoriums. Whether he was speaking to young people at a motivational conference or addressing veterans at a rally, his words resonated deeply with those who had experienced struggle and hardship. His authenticity, which had once shocked the liberal TV host, was now his greatest asset. One of his most memorable moments came at a charity gala, where Stallone was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award for his contributions to both film and philanthropy. As he took the stage, the audience rose to their feet, giving him a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Stallone, as always, was humbled. In his acceptance speech, he looked out at the crowd and said, "I'm just a guy who kept showing up. That's the secret. You don't have to be the best. You just have to keep fighting, keep showing up, and eventually things will fall into place." The words weren't new to his fans, but hearing them in that moment, after everything Stallone had been through, his rise from struggling artist to global superstar, his battles with health and aging, his personal losses and triumphs, carried a new weight. It was a reminder that success wasn't about perfection, but about grit. Stallone continued to make his mark in other ways. He became an influential voice in the world of fitness and health, regularly sharing tips and routines that were more about longevity than aesthetics. He had lived through decades of intense physical demand on his body, and his message was now one of sustainable health. He spoke about how to adapt your fitness routine as you age, stressing that staying active wasn't just for youth. It was a lifelong pursuit. Through it all, Stallone never lost his sense of humor. He was still the witty, sharp-tongued guy fans had come to love, even as he entered his senior years. Social media posts from him were as funny as they were motivational, with many showing him joking around with his family or making light of the aging process. His self-deprecating humor made him even more relatable to his followers. He wasn't just a superstar. He was a regular guy who had, quite frankly, made it through life by keeping a sense of humor through all the challenges. At the end of his career, when the spotlight eventually dimmed, Stallone's place in pop culture was solidified not just as an action hero, but as an enduring symbol of strength in all its forms. The interviews, the viral moments, the iconic roles, they all painted a picture of a man who had never backed down from a challenge, who had lived a life that wasn't just about making movies, but about inspiring people to believe in their own strength. Stallone had always been more than a tough guy with a chiseled jawline. He was an example of what it meant to persevere. He had shown the world that strength wasn't just physical, it was the strength to be yourself, to take risks, to fail, to get back up, and to never give up on your dreams. And for all the fame and accolades, that was his true legacy. The heart of a warrior, not just in movies, but in life. As he stepped away from the public eye, Stallone knew he had accomplished everything he set out to do. His impact was not just measured by the number of box office hits, but by the lives he had touched. And when the final curtain came down, his legacy wasn't one of fleeting fame. It was one of enduring resilience, authenticity, and the indomitable will to fight. As the years rolled on, Stallone's legacy only deepened. He began to embrace a quieter, more reflective lifestyle, spending time with his family and focusing on the projects that meant the most to him. He remained active in the industry, but no longer with the same relentless pace he had kept up for decades. Instead, he shifted his focus toward mentoring, passing on the lessons he had learned, and helping the next generation of filmmakers and actors understand that success didn't always come in the form of fame or fortune. It came from staying true to your principles and finding purpose in your work. One of the most touching moments in Stallone's later years came when he decided to make a documentary about his journey. It was less about his achievements and more about the process, about what it took to persevere not just in Hollywood but in life. He shared the highs and lows, the moments of doubt, the struggles with self-worth, and the constant battle to keep moving forward. The documentary wasn't just for fans, it was for anyone who had ever faced adversity and wondered if they had the strength to carry on. The response was overwhelming. People who had been through personal struggles, whether physical, mental, or emotional, found solace in his honesty. The documentary wasn't a one-off. Stallone became an advocate for mental health awareness, especially within the entertainment industry. He used his platform to speak openly about the pressure of maintaining a public image, the struggles of staying relevant, and the toll that constant scrutiny can take on an individual. He shared that for years, he had battled with feelings of self-doubt, even as he stood before millions of fans. His openness about his vulnerabilities helped break down the stigma around mental health, particularly for men, and earned him a new level of respect from both fans and peers. By this point, Stallone was seen not only as a legendary actor, but also as a wise elder statesman in Hollywood. He had become a figure people turned to for guidance, not just in terms of careers, but in life itself. He became a sounding board for younger actors, offering advice on navigating the pressures of fame, maintaining relationships, and finding balance. He even helped coach aspiring filmmakers, urging them to never compromise their vision no matter how tough the industry might get. In his personal life, Stallone found peace in spending more time with his family. His children, who had grown up in the shadow of his fame, appreciated him not just as their father, but as a person with a unique perspective on life. His relationships with them had always been a priority, but in his later years, they took on even more significance. Stallone spoke often about the joy of seeing his children carve their own paths, and he reveled in the simpler moments: dinners at home, spontaneous outings, and quiet family gatherings. There were also moments of reflection on his early career, how far he had come from the days when he wrote Rocky in a tiny, dingy apartment with only his dog for company. Stallone often talked about how much he appreciated those humble beginnings, understanding now more than ever that it was that struggle, that hunger for success, that had fueled him all along. He spoke of how the journey itself was what mattered most, not the destination. It was about the lessons learned in the process of chasing your dreams, about the character forged in moments of hardship. As the world around him continued to change, Stallone remained a constant, a reminder that strength, resilience, and authenticity could withstand the test of time. Though his public appearances became less frequent, his influence lingered, woven into the fabric of pop culture. The films he created and the characters he portrayed had stood the test of time, becoming more than just entertainment. They were symbols of hope, of fighting against the odds, of pushing through even when life felt impossible. In the final years of his life, Stallone began to slow down, content with the legacy he had built. He no longer needed to prove anything to the world. His body of work spoke for itself. Yet he continued to inspire, still receiving letters from fans and messages from people who had found courage in his films. His fans were no longer just moviegoers. They were people who had found strength in his story, who had been emboldened by his unflinching pursuit of his dreams. Sylvester Stallone's story was no longer just about the fight scenes, the chiseled physique, or the iconic catchphrases. It was about the fight for personal truth, the endurance to keep going when the world said it was over, and the unbreakable will to remain real, no matter what. His legacy was not just a filmography. It was a philosophy, a reminder that anyone, regardless of background or circumstance, could rise above their challenges and make their mark on the world. And as the final curtain fell on his incredible life, one thing was certain: